The black SUV rolled to an abrupt stop as protesters flooded the intersection, their signs bobbing like angry buoys in a human sea. Inside the vehicle, J.D. Vance's security detail tensed, hands drifting toward concealed weapons as the crowd enveloped them. "Sir, we need to reverse course now," his lead agent urged, eyes darting across the sea of screaming faces pressed against the tinted windows. The chants of "traitor" and "sellout" vibrated through the bulletproof glass. Vance remained still, studying the protesters through the window. College students with nose rings, grizzled union men in work boots, middle-aged women clutching handmade signs. His fingers absently traced the worn photograph in his jacket pocket as he made his decision. "Open the door." "Absolutely not, Senator. This crowd is—" "Open it." Vance's quiet command carried steel. "Or I will." As the locks disengaged with a thunk, the nearest protesters stumbled back in shock. The chants faltered when Vance stepped out alone, his 6 feet 2 inches frame towering over the front line of demonstrators. A bottle arced through the air, shattering at his feet. For 3 heartbeats, complete silence reigned. Then a burly ironworker shoved forward. "Think you're tough coming out here, rich boy?" Spittle flew from his lips. "Your votes put my brother out of work." Vance didn't flinch. He reached slowly into his breast pocket. The crowd surged backward, protesters bracing for what might come next. A weapon? A phone to call reinforcements? Instead, he produced a faded Polaroid, its edges softened by years of handling. "This is Jim Vance," he said, holding it high. "My grandfather. U.S. Steel, 42 years, lost his pension when Washington let the mills die." The ironworker's anger faltered as he squinted at the photo of a hard hat-wearing man standing before a blast furnace. "My grandma kept this in her Bible," Vance continued, voice carrying over the crowd, "to remind her what real work looks like." He turned the photo to reveal handwritten text, "Local 1124, never crossed." A murmur rippled through the protesters. The ironworker's sign dipped slightly. "Now," Vance said, tucking the photo away, "who wants to tell me how I'm betraying working people?" The megaphone-wielding organizer opened her mouth, but no sound came out. In that charged silence, Vance did the unthinkable. He stepped forward into the crowd and pulled out a folding chair from his SUV. "Sit down," he told the stunned ironworker. "Let's talk about your brother." The folding chair creaked under the ironworker's weight as he sat, his protest sign now resting against his knees like a surrendered flag. Around them, the crowd tightened, cell phones raised to capture every word. The organizer, a sharp-eyed woman named Naomi, kept her megaphone ready but didn't lift it yet. Vance remained standing, his sleeves rolled to the elbows. "You said your brother lost his job," he began. "Which plant?" "Lordstown," the man muttered. "GM." A murmur of recognition moved through the Ohio crowd. Vance nodded. "And before that?" "Same as your granddad, Steel." Vance reached into his pocket again, this time producing a business card. He scribbled on the back before handing it over. "Call this number tomorrow, ask for Bill." The ironworker squinted. "Who's Bill?" "Former floor manager at Timken Steel, now runs a retraining program for machinists." Vance paused. "Starting wages, $28 an hour." The crowd's energy shifted. Someone coughed. A student lowered their "Eat the Rich" sign just slightly. Naomi finally stepped forward, her skepticism intact. "So what? One job referral makes up for voting against the PRO Act. Against union rights?" Vance turned to her. "You're UA Local 18, right? Plumbers and pipe fitters." Her blink confirmed it before she could stop herself. "I voted no because Section 203 would have let the NLRB redraw your bargaining units without member votes." He pulled a folded paper from his jacket. A well-worn copy of the bill, marked with handwritten notes. Page 47, line 12. You tell me, should some bureaucrat in D.C. get to decide who represents your local? Naomi's grip on the megaphone slackened. Behind her, an older protester whispered, "Shit, is that true?" Vance pressed his advantage. "I'll make you a deal. You name one policy where I got it wrong. Not what the headlines say, what you actually believe, and I'll stay here until we fix it." He glanced at his watch. "Got 6 hours before my next vote." The crowd erupted, half in outrage, half in surprised approval. But it was the ironworker who changed everything when he rasped, "What about the railroad strike?" Vance didn't hesitate. "I was wrong." The admission cut through the noise like a knife. Should have backed the workers on sick days. He pulled out his phone. But it's not too late to fix it. Senator Brown's got a new bill coming. You help me draft the amendments, I'll make sure they stick. Naomi stared at him. "You're seriously asking us to negotiate?" Vance finished. "Yeah, that's how this is supposed to work." As the protesters began arguing among themselves, Vance did something no one expected. He grabbed an empty milk crate and sat down on the asphalt, right there in the middle of the street. "Well," he said, looking up at the ironworker, "you in." And just like that, the protest became something else entirely. The ironworker, Mac, as he'd introduced himself, lowered himself onto the milk crate with a grunt, his knees popping. Around them, the protest's energy splintered. Some demonstrators drifted away, muttering about political theater. Others edged closer, phones still recording, but now with curiosity rather than rage. Naomi, the organizer, crossed her arms. "You expect us to believe you'll actually listen?" Vance pulled a small notepad from his pocket, its pages dog-eared and covered in cramped handwriting. "I've got 6 union contracts in here from towns the press never visits," he said, "all with clauses D.C. politicians ignore." He flipped it open to a marked page. "Like this one, Lima UAW Local 1219. Their healthcare opt-out kills workers because corporate won't." "Wait." Mac snatched the notebook, his calloused fingers tracing the notes. "You wrote this?" "Not some staffer. My granddad taught me to read contracts before I could ride a bike." Vance pointed to a margin note. "See that? That's your brother's plant's old agreement. Page 22, the safety waiver that got 3 guys hurt last year." A murmur rippled through the remaining crowd. Someone whispered, "How the hell does he know that?" Naomi's resolve cracked. She crouched beside them, her protest sign abandoned on the asphalt. "Prove it. Call Brown right now." Vance didn't blink. He dialed on speakerphone. 2 rings later, Senator Sherrod Brown's familiar voice crackled through. "Vance? You better be calling about those rail amendments." The crowd gasped. Mac's weathered face went slack. "Yeah," Vance said, eyes locked on Naomi. "But I've got some Ohio hands here who want input. Put it this way. If we don't get the safety language right, I'm going to be stuck in a Cleveland intersection all night." Brown's laugh boomed through the phone. "Tell Mac I said hi, and that his local's grievance form, it's on my desk." The revelation hit like lightning. Brown and Vance had been working together quietly for months. Naomi's megaphone clattered to the ground as the protesters erupted into disbelieving chatter. But it was the teen in a Fight for 15 shirt who changed everything. "What about us?" she burst out. "You gonna help students drowning in debt, too?" Vance stood abruptly, chair scraping. "Follow me." He led the bewildered crowd half a block down to a shuttered storefront. A former bakery with "For Lease" signs plastered across its windows. "This," he said, jabbing a key into the rusted lock, "is why I voted against the last student loan bill." The door creaked open to reveal not an empty shop, but a bustling workspace humming with 3D printers and young adults in tech vests. A dark-skinned woman looked up from a prototype drone. "Senator, the solar cells just passed stress tests." "Meet Zadie," Vance said. "Her student debt's being paid by this co-op's profits. My bill turns abandoned storefronts into these across Ohio." He turned to the gaping teen. "Your choice. Wait for DC to maybe forgive loans, or guarantee a job that pays them off in 3 years. As the protesters surged inside, Naomi grabbed Vance's arm. "Why the hell aren't you publicizing this?" He pocketed the bakery key. "Because today's the first time anyone bothered to ask." Outside, unnoticed by the crowd, Mac made a phone call. "Call off the trucks," he told his union brothers. "We got a real one here." By nightfall, the videos had gone supernova. CNN's Kyron screamed, Vance's stunt, genuine outreach or calculated rebrand. Fox News countered, Senator schools, protesters and real America values. Twitter detectives zoomed in on the notebook's pages, debating, "You've made powerful enemies today." The voice was silk smooth, unmistakably belonging to a certain billionaire donor. "Our polling shows independents love this working-class hero act. But my associates, they prefer senators who stay bought." The line went dead. Back at the protest site, cleanup crews found something the cameras missed. Vance's forgotten notepad, its pages fluttering in the gutter. A college journalist snapped photos before security confiscated it. The blurred images showed not just union contracts, but a 1998 obituary for James Vance, survived by grandson J.D., schematics for the bakery retrofit, and one underlined quote, "They'll call you traitor for listening. Do it anyway." By midnight, number Traitor Vance was trending. But in Youngstown, 3 retired steelworkers met at their usual diner. They passed a single Polaroid across the table. Vance's grandfather, standing proud before the furnaces. "Jimmy's boy," one murmured. "Guts just like him." Their forks clinked against plates in quiet tribute. The real verdict was never going to be rendered on cable news. The morning talk shows were still dissecting the protest footage when Vance walked into the Senate chamber to find his desk vandalized. Someone had taped a handwritten note across his nameplate. "Traitors sit in the back." His colleagues pretended not to notice. The aisle between Democrats and Republicans might as well have been a canyon. Then Senator Sherrod Brown, the progressive lion from Ohio, crossed it. He dropped a file on Vance's desk with a thud. "Rail safety amendments," Brown grunted. "Your name's on them, too. Hope you've got the stomach for what comes next." What came next was immediate. By lunchtime, 3 corporate lobbyists had stormed Majority Leader's office. By 2 p.m., a super PAC launched attack ads calling Vance and Brown socialist collaborators. At 3:15, a leaked memo revealed Vance had been stripped of his Commerce Committee seat. "Welcome to the club," Brown said, handing Vance a bourbon in his hideaway office. The walls were lined with faded union posters. "They did the same to me in 2007 when I fought the NAFTA revisions." Vance studied the amber liquid. "My donors are pulling out." "Good." Brown clinked their glasses. "Now you'll learn who really runs this place." Back in Ohio, the backlash took a darker turn. Protesters, real ones this time, bussed in by a dark money group, surrounded Vance's Cincinnati office. Their signs screamed "Rhino" and "Globalist Puppet." But inside, an unexpected defense was mounting. Mac and his union brothers formed a human barricade at the doors. "You want to get to the senator?" The ironworker growled at the agitators. "Go through Local 1219 first." The standoff might have turned ugly if not for the delivery truck that rolled up at that moment. The driver hopped out with a crate of bakery boxes, all stamped with the new co-op's logo. "Compliments of Senator Vance," he announced, handing out pastries to both sides. "Says you're all welcome to debate him inside after lunch." Even the angriest protester paused at that. The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls did what police barricades couldn't. It diffused the tension. By nightfall, a different video went viral. It showed Vance sitting cross-legged on his office floor, surrounded by activists and union reps, debating policy over boxed lunches. The caption read, "Remember when politicians actually talked to people?" In a Manhattan high-rise, the billionaire donor watched the footage with narrowed eyes. His aide hesitated. "Sir, the pressure campaign doesn't seem to be—" "Double the ad buys," the billionaire snapped. "And get me the opposition research file. Everything on Vance's grandfather." As the aide scurried away, the donor didn't notice the janitor, a moonlighting bakery co-op member, pause outside his door. Or the text that soon flashed on Mac's phone. "They're coming for Jimmy's legacy. Time to return the favor." Some battles weren't fought in the Senate. They were won in union halls and bakeries, and in the quiet loyalty of men who remembered what real leadership looked like. The attack ads hit like a storm. Grainy footage of Vance's grandfather crossing a 1978 picket line, spliced with ominous narration. Like grandfather, like grandson. J.D. Vance says he stands with workers, but his bloodline tells a different story. Vance's poll numbers plummeted overnight. Then the steelworkers responded. At dawn the next morning, a convoy of rusted pickup trucks rolled into D.C., their beds filled with aging men in hard hats. They set up folding chairs outside the Capitol, a silent army of grizzled faces and bent backs. Reporters swarmed, but the men said nothing, until Mac stepped forward, holding a yellowed newspaper. "This ain't about Vance," he said, unfolding the 1978 Youngstown Vindicator with deliberate care. The headline blared, "Scab photo a fake, union says." Turns out, the picket line footage was from a management rally, one James Vance had actually been protesting against. The billionaire's Oppo research team had missed the retraction printed 3 days later. The media frenzy that followed was unlike anything D.C. had seen. By noon, the hashtag number "They Lied" was trending in every swing state. By 3 p.m., 3 major donors withdrew support from the attack ads. At sunset, Sherrod Brown strode onto the Senate floor with a stack of union letters, each one demanding a vote on the rail safety bill. Vance watched it all from his now isolated desk, running his thumb along the edge of his grandfather's photo. He didn't speak when the majority leader finally caved and scheduled the vote. Didn't cheer when it passed with bipartisan numbers that shocked pundits. But that night, at a dimly lit bar near the Navy Yard, Vance bought Mac a beer. The old ironworker pushed a folded slip of paper across the sticky table. Local 1219 voted, Mac said. "We're endorsing you. Not because you're perfect, because you showed up." Vance unfolded the note. A photocopied ballot with scribbled votes. One comment stood out in the margins. "Jimmy's boy listens." As the jukebox played an old Union anthem, neither man noticed the reporter in the corner. The next day's headline said it all. "The last politician who remembers what work looks like." And somewhere in Ohio, a new bakery co-op hung a signed photo behind their counter, not of a senator but of a steelworker and his grandson, standing proud before the furnaces that forged them both. This story proves that leadership isn't about perfect speeches or political games. It's about showing up, listening, and standing by your word. Now it's your turn. Here's how you can make a difference today. Share this story to remind others what real leadership looks like. Support leaders in your community who listen before they judge. Stand up for what matters, even when it's not the easy choice. Change starts with action. What will yours be? Join the conversation. #RealLeadership.